So 3a minus 4 for this first polynomial is going to be 3 shaded rectangles minus 4 would be 4 unshaded little squares. So we are representing that polynomial with algebra tiles. Then we're going to represent negative 2 minus a using algebra tiles. And we do that. The negative 2 is 2 unshaded little squares. And the negative a is an unshaded rectangle. All the blue tiles I just drew are unshaded because they're all negative. All negative tiles are unshaded. So yesterday's lesson was on grouping our like terms. So now all we do is we group our like terms. And all that means is we put all of our rectangles together and we put all of our little squares together. So if I put my rectangles together, I've got 3 shaded rectangles along with an unshaded rectangle. And we also have 4 unshaded little squares with 2 unshaded little squares. And once we group our like terms, what do we look for? We look for 0 pairs. And what that means is we look to see. So let's look at those. Let's look at our rectangles. When we look at our rectangles, do we see shaded and unshaded? Yeah. Yes. So for every shaded and unshaded, we can make a 0 pair. How many 0 pairs can we make there? We can make 1 0 pair. So that means we can cross out 1 of each. Can we make any 0 pairs with the little squares? We cannot. So when we make our 1 0 pair, that leaves us with 2 shaded rectangles along with 6 shaded little squares. If we put that back in symbolic form, what do we got?
2a minus 6.
2a minus 6. And that's how we add polynomials using algebra tiles. All right. In the interest of time, we'll skip the second example. We'll go right to the 2 examples on the reverse side, and we'll do both of these. So we'll take a look at that first one. It's 3c squared minus c plus 3. How do you draw 3c squared?
3 shaded and big squares.
3 shaded and big squares. Right. 1, 2, 3. How do we draw negative c?
Non-shaded rectangle.
Correct. How do we draw in plus 3?
3 shaded units.
3 shaded units. So there we go. There's 3c squared minus c plus 3. Now, we're going to draw in c squared plus 4c plus 5. How do we draw that?
1 big square, like 1 shaded and big square.
Is it shaded? Is it shaded big square? Yeah. Good. How do we draw in 4c?
4 shaded rectangle.
4 shaded rectangles. And how do we draw in plus 5? 5 shaded units. So there we go. So we draw out each of those polynomials. What's our next step?
You have to group them together.
We have to group them together. That's correct. So that means that we're going to put the 3 shaded black squares. I guess they're all going to become black for me now, but we're going to group them with the 1 shaded big square. So now we got a total of 4 shaded big squares. Then we also have an unshaded rectangle with 4 shaded rectangles. And last but not least, we have our 3 shaded little squares with 5 shaded little squares. That's what we get when we mix them all together. Are there any 0 pairs?
Yep.
What shape?
Rectangle.
How many of them?
1.
Correct. So chop, 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 chop. That 0 pair goes away. No other 0 pairs available. So the big squares, we had 4. We still have 4. And they're still shaded. With the rectangles, we have 3 shaded rectangles. And then we have how many shaded little squares?
8.
You betcha. And that's what we're left with. So, how would we say the answer to this question then?
4c squared plus 3c plus 8.
Beautiful. 4c squared plus 3c plus 8. All right, next one. Next one's a little unique because it doesn't give us 2. It actually gives us 3 polynomials. So we've got 3a minus 1. We've got 4 plus 3a. And we've got 2a minus 7. So let's start with 3a minus 1. How do we draw it?
3 shaded rectangles.
3 shaded rectangles.
And 1 unshaded unit.
Beautiful. That's how we draw 3a minus 1. How do we draw 4 plus 3a?
4 shaded units.
4 shaded units and
3 shaded rectangles.
3 shaded rectangles. Good? What about 2a minus 7?
2 shaded rectangles.
And
7 unshaded units.
perfect. So that's how we model that addition statement using algebra tiles. And now what we get to do is what?
Put them together.
Group them together. So, if we are going to group them together, then we've got, let's look at our rectangles first. Are they all shaded?
Yep.
How many of them are there?
8.
So we have a total of 8 all shaded rectangles. Now, as far as the units go, we got 1 unshaded. We've got 4 shaded. And then we've got 7 unshaded. So we got a mix of everything there. What do we have more of? Shaded or unshaded?
Unshaded.
Unshaded. So we're going to find some 0 pairs. We have a 0 pair right here, a 0 pair right here, a 0 pair right here, a 0 pair right there. And so what that does is don't change the number of rectangles. We had 8. We still have 8. But for the units, we have now how many?
4. Unshaded.
We have 4 unshaded units left over. And if we turn this back into symbolic form, how would we say our answer?
8a minus 4.
Beautiful.